Okay, Kevin, let's take a look at your swim stroke. We are going to look at the side view first, and I've got the above water view up here and below water down here. They're synced up so that they're showing the exact same thing, just one underwater, one above. The first thing to note is, let me go back here just a little bit, is your body position right here. If you look at the angle of your upper body in particular, not quite horizontal, so we'd like to see that position much more horizontal like this. And there is a reason why you're heading towards vertical. Your legs and core area here, hips and legs are dropping. And there's a reason for that, and we'll see that as we go along. Um, Another thing to note here, very nice head position. We can see up top here, um, just the top portion of your head out of the water. Down below, you can kind of make out that your eyes are pointed down and slightly above, just exactly like what we'd like to see. So very good head position there. Here's where the problems start. If we look at your arm here, you got a nice high elbow position. And let me back it up just slightly if I can, right here. What we'd like to see happen from here is that as this arm comes forward a little bit, the forearm drops, the arm comes forward a little more, and the forearm drops more. We'd like to see that hand enter the water somewhere around here. So your hand would enter the water, 4 to 8 inches in front of your head. Fingertips pierce through the water, create a hole for your hand, your wrist, then followed by your forearm, followed by your elbow, and then your upper arm, all through this hole, and then your arm extends out underneath the water. That's what we'd like to see. What we are going to see here is the entire arm extend out above the water out in front of you. The problem with this, well, there's two problems with it. One of the problems is that you'll see a bunch of splashing all around your arm. That's a disturbance in the water that we don't want to create. We want to create as little splash and bubbles as possible. Down here you can see the after effects of that arm being sent in all at once. All these bubbles actually just slow you down. The other and more severe problem with doing this is that anytime you stick something out above the water out here, what happens down here is the hips and legs tend to want to fall. And we saw that earlier with this upward body position. So we don't want that whole arm to stretch out. We want to enter the water back here with the hand first and then follow the rest of the arm underneath the water. We'll go forward a little and we see the splash of the entire arm entering at once. So same thing over here with the right arm, entire arm out in front, actually the elbows entering before the palms even touch the water. Once again, that causes the hips to drop, and your brain will sense those hips dropping. Let me show you this. And there's two things you can do when your hips want to drop to the bottom. Your brain will not allow that to happen because they don't want you under the water. They want you up here on top where you can breathe. There's two ways to fix it. One is big kicks. And you see here your foot's coming up out of the water, bent at the knee, creating a lot of splash here. So you're kicking big, all this turbulence back here in the water. The other thing you can do to prevent those hips from dropping is push this hand straight down. Now I'll show you again with a series of lines what we'd like to see happen. Let me go back. Okay, start off with a nice, wrong one. Start off with nice extended arm, forearm, and hand. The first thing we want to do is a catch. And a catch is this elbow would stay where it is, the forearm drops slightly, and the hand bent at the wrist creates a paddle. So there's your catch. That's the first thing we want to happen. The next thing, that elbow might drop just a little bit, but very little if any. Forearm farther drops or pulls back with the hand. Next thing, elbow still relatively the same position, forearm, hand. So instead of pushing downward, getting a pulling backward, more of a pulling backward motion. You may have heard it expressed like we want to wrap that arm around a barrel. If there's a barrel underneath the water, we want to wrap that arm around it. That's one visual picture you can use. So instead of that motion happening, what we're seeing here is the arm pushing straight down, and it may have the benefit of helping to keep your hips and legs up, but it does nothing to propel you forward. All this distance from here to here, all that energy that you used, all of that is going into keeping your hips up and not propelling you forward. We want to use his arms to propel you forward and have all the energy, or as much as possible, used to propel you forward. The way we're going to do that is we're going to prevent these hips from dropping in the first place by getting the hand into the water slightly in front of the head and extending that arm out underneath the water rather than above the water. Once again, nice head position. Now we're going to see the second problem, and that is, or the second issue. We start with a very nice head position here, water line right there, most of the head underneath the water looking slightly ahead. What we'd like to see is the chin just roll up to the side of the water to get the air with no lifting whatsoever the head. What we're going to see is, first off, the head comes up. You can see here, we can see the entire top of the head and a lot of the left-hand side of your head as well. Let's see if we can go a little further. Okay. What happens is now, let me go back actually. Back here, we've got a nice position with the spine and neck and head all in alignment here. However, when we lift the head to take that breath, went a little far because you started to get back. Okay. Here we see the spine like this, but now the head sticking up out of the water as at more of a bent angle. So the neck is bent up. Also see here that we've over-rotated a bit. Up here you're looking up in this direction. We'd like to see you look more straight to the side when you take that breath. So actually what it'll look like is the water line will be, and you bring this down horizontal, but the water line will kind of bisect the front of your face. One of your goggles will remain underwater and one will be above water, and this part of your head underwater as well. So roll that head over rather than lifting up the top of it. What happens when you lift that head, it's another one of those forces. You lift your head here, the hips fall down, the legs fall down. So once again, your body senses it, and it does this big, huge pushing downward motion rather than pulling backwards, bringing all this air and bubbles in with you, creating turbulence and creating resistance. Now back to that good head position. See how your hips went back up, But then this arm comes up above water and the hips want to go down again. So we have the big kicks, we have the push downward. All this pushing downward, you're losing what could be forward momentum out of pulling you forward. So two things to primarily work on here. The first is the head position when you go to take a breath. And let me stop that because that looked almost like, no. We're probably going to be obscured by this arm, but now you've lowered the top of that head back in. You're just over rotated a little bit too far. Right there. That's what your breath should look like. Something like this, where the water line right along here bisects bisects your head, right in the middle. One goggle underwater, one goggle above water. This is exactly what you want to strive for. Your spine, neck, head angle, all in alignment here. Exactly what you want this to look like. So, two things. Rotation of the head when you take a breath, and getting these arms into the water, hands first, down below the water, and extending underneath the water. Those two things will help you keep your hips up, your legs up. You won't have to kick as much. You won't have to push down with those hands, and you can use those arms to pull you forward. Good job. Work on those couple of things, and they will drastically improve your swim stroke, and you'll go faster, you'll have more fun, and good luck with that.